Once the startup period is over, it's time to calibrate your device. After completing this step, you will have learned what calibration is and why it's important, know how to recognize calibration prompts, entered calibration values from your blood glucose meter, learned some tips for calibration. First, let's talk a little about what calibration is. Think of getting a new sensor as being a little like getting a new watch. When you get a new watch, you don't just let it run and take the time it displays as correct. Instead, you look at a watch or clock you already have and set that time on the new watch. In other words, you adjust or standardize your new watch to a known reference, a clock or watch you already have. It's the same thing when you get a new sensor. The new sensor doesn't automatically know what your glucose levels are, just as a new watch doesn't automatically know what time it is. You have to teach your new sensor your blood glucose values by entering in a known glucose value from your blood glucose meter, just as you would adjust a new watch to the current time. This is how you calibrate your sensor. Calibration is a very important part of making sure your Dexcom G4 Platinum system is working its best. So be sure to make every calibration count. And calibrate smart by using the best fingerstick technique with your blood glucose meter. Wash your hands, use your fingertips, etc. Unlike a new watch, where you generally just set the time once, your sensor needs to be calibrated throughout its life. This is because its readings can change over time, like a watch over time running a little too fast or too slow. You'll need to calibrate your sensor to make sure that it is providing you with the most accurate sensor glucose readings over the whole time that you are using it. We'll go over the calibration schedule a little later in this step. Your initial startup calibration is done by taking 2 fingerstick readings with your blood glucose meter and entering the exact values into your receiver within 5 minutes of them being taken. The initial startup calibration with each new sensor is the only time you need to enter 2 consecutive blood glucose values. If you plan on downloading data from your receiver and glucose meter, make sure the times and dates on the 2 devices match. After the 2-hour startup period, the double blood drop prompt will appear on your receiver to let you know it is time to enter your initial startup calibrations. Press Select to clear this alert. Next, wash and dry your hands. Perform a fingerstick blood glucose reading with your blood glucose meter. Enter the exact blood glucose value into your Dexcom G4 Platinum receiver within 5 minutes of performing the fingerstick. To enter the value, press Select to get to the main menu. Press the down button to highlight Enter BG. Press Select to choose this option. Initially, the default glucose setting will be at 120 milligrams per deciliter. Press the up or down buttons to enter the exact blood glucose value from your blood glucose meter into the receiver. Press Select. Confirm the calibration value is correct. If yes, press the Select button to accept the calibration entry. Perform another fingerstick to get a second blood glucose value, and then repeat the previous steps to enter your second calibration value. Throughout your 7-day sensor session, the calibration prompt will appear to let you know it is time to update your calibration by entering 1 fingerstick blood glucose value. Calibration must occur at Startup, 2 hours after your sensor insertion. 12-hour calibration, every 12 hours after your initial startup calibration. You can calibrate more frequently if desired. In some cases, during your sensor session, you may be prompted to enter additional calibration updates if needed. Before we move on, let's go over some calibration tips that are important for you to remember. In order to obtain the most accurate readings on your Dexcom G4 Platinum system, proper calibration is required using accurate blood glucose values. Use a blood glucose value obtained only from a fingerstick for all entered calibrations. Make sure a glucose reading is displayed at the top of the trend graph, or a blood drop symbol is displayed in the top right corner of the trend graph before entering a calibration. Only fingerstick readings between 40 and 400 milligrams per deciliter can be used for calibration. If one or more of your readings entered was outside of this range, the receiver will not calibrate. You will have to wait until your blood glucose is in this glucose range to calibrate. Always make sure that the antenna symbol is displayed in the upper left corner of the trend graph before you enter blood glucose values for calibration. You should always use the same meter you routinely use to measure your blood glucose to calibrate. Do not switch your meter in the middle of a sensor session. Blood glucose meter and strip accuracy may vary between brands. Enter your blood glucose value into the receiver within 5 minutes of performing the fingerstick. Do not calibrate if any acetaminophen-containing medications are active in your body. If you take any acetaminophen-containing medications, ask your healthcare provider or pharmacist how long these medications are active in your body. Warning: your sensor readings may be inaccurate if you calibrate less often than recommended. Let's walk through an example of the minimum calibration schedule during a 7-day sensor session. Let's say you insert your sensor and start your sensor session on Monday morning at 8 a.m. This would be considered day 1 of your sensor session. At 10 a.m. on Monday, you would receive the 2-hour startup calibration prompt, letting you know you need to do your 2 initial startup calibrations. You would take 2 fingerstick blood glucose readings with your blood glucose meter and enter each value into your receiver. At 10 p.m., 12 hours after your startup calibration, you would receive the 12-hour update calibration prompt. You would take 1 fingerstick blood glucose reading with your blood glucose meter and enter the exact value into your receiver. Tuesday would be day 2 of your sensor session. At 10 a.m. Tuesday morning, the 12-hour update calibration prompt would notify you that it is time to enter another calibration. You would again take 1 fingerstick blood glucose reading with your blood glucose meter and enter that exact value into your receiver. Late Tuesday evening, 10 p.m., the 12-hour update calibration prompt would alert you. You would again take 1 fingerstick blood glucose reading with your blood glucose meter and enter that exact value into your receiver. Wednesday through Sunday, or days 3 through 7 of your sensor session, you would continue with the same calibration schedule as on Tuesday, entering 1 fingerstick blood glucose value at 10 a.m. and another at 10 p.m.